So 13th verse was about Dehino Asminyata Devas, that Krishna is giving an analogy, just like a soul passes from the body from boyhood to youth to old age. Similarly, the soul changes body at the time of death. So he's giving this knowledge to Arjun and saying that you should not be bewildered. Okay. But then somebody can ask, okay, if I don't have to be bewildered, what should I do? So the Krishna says this in the next verse, Matra sparshas tu kaunteya sitoshna sukha dukkha agama paino nityas tam sitikshara bharata. What Krishna is asking? So please tolerate Arjun. So yes, I'm not a body, I'm a soul, and I should not be bewildered. How to do that? I just tolerate, right? There's a wherever there's happiness, distress will also come. Wherever there is distress, happiness will also come. If it's summer, winters are going to come. So it just keeps the cycle. So we just have to tolerate. So it's a flow that's happening. So that's the 14th verse is the application of the 13th verse. Tolerate the dualities, right? And matra sparsha, sparsh, right? Sparsh means touch. So when we touch with these sense objects, our senses are always there. Sense objects are also there. However, pure devotees, they don't make that connection between the sense and sense objects. As to me, whom I'm a beginner, I always make that connection and I get sucked into it. That's the difference. And then when bad things happen, I become sad. And when good things happen, I become happy. Okay? So yeah, so uh, that's the next verse. And um, we when we come to bhakti, we have tests at three levels. What I mean by that, so our realization in bhakti comes at three levels. One is the level of flesh versus spirit, body versus soul. That's one realization, one test we have to go through. That I have to realize I'm not this body, I'm a soul, right? So, and when I say flesh, I'm talking about body-related pleasures. And a very simple example is getting up early in the morning, right? It's hard to get up early in the morning. It looks like our bed and our pillow becomes has a magnetic pull. But then coming out of it is where you are again passing that test between flesh and spirit, between the body versus the soul. Your soul needs to chant, to read, to hear, and then, but your body does not. It says in the Bible that the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. It says in the Bible. One of the apostles of Jesus Christ says that. So, so that's the first test we have to give. The second test we have to give is appearance versus reality. Right. So first stage, body, soul. Okay, we start to realize that to some extent. Then the next level test comes, appearance versus reality. Right. Uh, we read those stages of bhakti, right? Shraddha, sadhu, sangha, bhajan, kriya, nritti, right? And there's a concomitant flow, right? Uh, so we, so we keep progressing. So right now the jiva is in bondage, and there is no desire for liberation, right? So and bondage is just the lack of investigation. That I'm in bondage because I'm not investigating, I'm not asking the right questions. So when we have regulated our lifestyle, the test becomes on a mental level. Earlier, I told you what was on a bodily level, body versus, but then it becomes a mental level, right? So I often practice to show off to others. Externally, I try to be detached, but inside, I have a whirlpool of emotions. So appearance versus reality. What do I appear versus what is the reality in me? So pure devotees don't have that dichotomy. They present what they are. They are never like, oh, inside I'm thinking of something else and outside I'm saying something else. Right? So that's the next level of test we have to give. And the third level of test comes where uh, it becomes between my glory and God's glory. Right? When we all grow in bhakti, Krishna will give us all of us will get fame. There'll be people who will appreciate the way you speak, the way you do your service, the way you give classes, whatever it may be. the way you distribute books, you'll get glory. People will glorify us. Right? And what does the ego tell me then? Kartaham. I am doing it. I am the doer. So now from a mental level, it has come to an ego level. Right? Ahankar. Ahankar means aham kara. I am doing it. That's what ahankar means. Right? So that's another level of battle that we have to do. Right? I'm not telling you all these to scare you. I'm just telling you all this to so you can understand where we stand in bhakti. It is very important to understand that. At every time you have to acknowledge where am I in my bhakti, because it's a very practical path. You always have to do that check. That have I grown in bhakti? What are the symptoms am I seeing in myself? Am I changing? Am I more tolerant? Do I have more taste for reading, hearing? So you will see all these changes, and you have to be very, very careful. And if those changes are not coming in, then you have to talk to your guru, talk to a guru, talk to an advanced devotee, and they'll help you. Right? So yes, that's something that we have to be successful in bhakti. We have to go through these tests. Let's see. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Could you
Hare
please
Krishna.
elaborate on appearance versus reality?
Yes, I can elaborate that. So appearance versus reality, what I meant was so initially when we come into bhakti, I can give you from my own example.
Yeah.
Like 10, 15 years ago, I used to be like in the morning, I started going to Mangal Aarti, 3:30 a.m. I used to wake up, I go to the temple, but I didn't know all the artis. I didn't know what they were singing. So somebody gave me a booklet, and I would stand in a corner of the temple and I would read it, right? And I was like a new guy. I was scared, and you're like, oh, I don't know all this. I'm just trying to learn and be humble and all that. But after some time, I learned everything, and then that ego came in me and said, oh no, I know everything, even though inside I was all the same mess, the chaos, the ego, the envy, and everything was there. All that ignorance was there. But outwardly, I started presenting. I started wearing dhoti kurta. I would put a beautiful tilak, and I would be like, so my appearance changed, but the reality had not changed in me. And even today, it's not changed. It's still there. I still have tons of envy in my heart. I have ignorance in my heart. But then my appearance has changed significantly. You'll see me, oh yes, I'll be distributing books, I'll be like, giving classes. But then inside my heart, I still have those challenges. So that's the test that I was talking about. Appearance means how do I look outwardly versus reality means what is it exactly in my heart? Is it clean? Have I made it into a temple for Krishna to come and sit in? I have not done that. That's the difference.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so we are on the 15th verse. Let's start from 15th. Let's see. So this is Krishna speaking to Arjun. O best among men, Arjun, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress, is steady in both, is certainly eligible for liberation. So now what is Krishna doing? So let's go back. The 13th, 14th, and 15th verse. 13th verse, Krishna is telling, body passes from youth to old age. Similarly, you're going to pass into a new body. So don't be disturbed. Then the next verse is, okay, how should I not be disturbed? Saying, you tolerate things, you tolerate the dualities. Okay, what will happen if I tolerate the dualities? This comes to this verse, that you will be eligible for liberation. So that's the progression that Krishna is giving. So it's the fruit of practicing spiritual life. So result of tolerance is saha amritatve kalpate. Where's that? So amritatvaya kalpate. So amritatve means liberation. Kalpate means is considered eligible. Right? So toleration helps you become eligible for liberation. And there's a similar verse which comes in the prayers of Brahma, Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 14th chapter, verse number 8, where he's saying, Tatya anukampam susamikshamano bhunjan evatra kritam vipakam. Vidvag vapurbhir vidata namaste jive tayo mukti pade sadaya bhak. So the word daya bhak, the last two words in that verse, means you become eligible for the kingdom of God. And how do you become eligible for the kingdom of God? By just tolerating whatever is coming your way. It's like punishment I'm being given, or is something a curative treatment that Krishna is giving me. I just take everything as that it's Krishna trying to bring me closer to him, and I just live my life. So at the end of my life, I become eligible to go back home, back to Godhead. So similar concept is being highlighted here. That, yes, no more misery, liberation. So, right, that's right. And Prabhupada in the purport, he talks about determination. Anyone who is steady in determination for the advanced stage of spiritual realization and can equally tolerate the onslaughts of distress and happiness is certainly a person eligible for liberation. So, a very clear-cut practical way, they're just tolerating whatever onslaughts of distress are coming our way as Krishna's mercy, and we just keep moving forward in life. So,
I have a question, Prabhuji. So in practical life, what does not tolerating mean? Like people, we all of us human being, we go through ups and downs in life, but at the end we are tolerating, right? Because we don't have control over things. The Supreme controls everything. So what does not tolerating mean?
yeah. So what does not tolerating? Not tolerating means when we are unable to accept or endure a situation, right? So when we don't tolerate, we react emotionally, right? Crying, shouting, arguing, mental breakdown, instead of staying steady and peaceful. Right? So if I break it down simply for you, tolerating means bearing something unpleasant without losing inner peace. Prabhupada gives this wonderful example that in India, summers are very hot. Still, ladies, they cook in the kitchen for their family members because they know that's something they want to do. They don't worry it's hot. They say, so what? Okay, I'm cooking for my family. So that's tolerating, right? So what does not tolerating means is when you lose composure when faced with difficulty. It's hot, I can't take it. I'm angry, crying, I'm frustrated. Right? So that's what happens when you don't tolerate. So eventually you will have to go through whatever is coming your way. I cannot change that. However, what you can change is how you take that situation, how you approach that situation. You could take it in a very graceful way, tolerate it, or you can become in a very, like I wouldn't call it animalistic, but in a very, very uh, like a mad way, or like an ignorant way, where you can just scream and cry and kick and blame others and think that the whole world is here to hurt me, victim, like a victim mentality. So that's not tolerating. Does that make sense?
Yes, very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, Sandeep.
So, Prabhuji, yeah, that's something similar question I had because, like, are we saying that in Krishna consciousness at least, that toleration means that whatever comes to us, right? We just came saying, okay, fine, just this thing came in, that thing came in, right? Whatever.
Mm.
But that does not necessarily mean the idea of the yogis, right? Who said that, these things are not bothering me anymore because I'm above all. So whatever is happening, like, it doesn't. So, see, the point is like the yogis way is basically, not feeling the pain, and maybe the Krishna conscious way is like, okay, whatever the pain is there, I accept it. Okay, I feel painful, whatever. That's a part of life, right? So exactly, like, what exactly is the approach of like a devotee? Is it like accepting the pain and living with it, or kind of trying to rise over it with the bhakti?
Um, so there are two things, right? Pain and suffering. So pain is inevitable. For example, when it's hot, you are feeling hot. It's not as if the heat becomes like a winter or a pleasant weather. The heat will be there. But are you suffering or not is a choice that we all can make. That's something, look at it from that way. And how does that? Uh, so yes, so in one sense, when you say there are yogis who have overcome pain, yeah, that's okay. But pain is just a physical or a mental sensation. What's happening to your body? Right? You burn your hand, physical pain. Someone insults you, a mental pain. Right? You cannot avoid pain. It's a part of human life. Suffering is the reaction to pain. So suffering is what the mind does when you are in pain. It's our what's the right phrase to use? It's the inner resistance, or the identification with pain, right? So when I say, why me? This shouldn't happen to me. That's suffering. So let's look at two people. One person, let's have somebody has a toothache. One person will say, it hurts, but I know it will pass. So it's okay. Pain, but no suffering. Another says, I can't stand it. Life is so unfair. Why am I getting this toothache? I brush my teeth twice a day. That's pain and suffering. So that's why Krishna is telling Arjun, Matra sparshastu konteya sitoshna sukha dukkha, that these dualities of life will always be there. Just learn to go above them. So what Krishna is teaching in Bhagavad Gita is more on a spiritual level, on the level of your soul, not on the level of body. Yes, there might be yogis who can overcome pain. They might not feel pain. But have they also stopped the level of suffering? If not, just stopping the pain is not much of a help to anyone. So pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Tolerance means to see pain as temporary and not let it disturb our consciousness. Was that what you were saying, Prabhu? Did that
Yeah, Prabhuji, I
resonate?
think it made quite a lot of sense actually, because I think our way is actually not yogi's way. That's what I kind of understand from that.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, if it comes. If not, then just be fine with it, right?
Yes.
All
And
right.
and there is no way to avoid pain. See, this body is is meant to be in pain. Tell me one day where everything was perfect and you were like, and I'm not even, I know about myself, that I had full energy 24/7. I didn't feel hurt with anything, either emotionally or psychologically or bodily. There's never a day like that. However, by constantly reading the Bhagavad Gita, by trying to imbibe these principles in my life, I can surely avoid the suffering. For sure, I assure you, you can do that. Means if I can do it, all of you can very easily do it. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I can do it at some levels because by reading Bhagavad Gita, by hearing to advanced devotees. So yes, you're right. We are not in that kind of a yoga practice where we are trying to remove bodily pain. That's not our goal. Yeah.
And probably not just body, right? Could be anything, basically
Yeah.
mental,
Yeah. Yeah.
relational, whatever it is, right? Right.
It could be, yes.
Okay. Okay.
And all of that is being taught by Krishna in this Bhagavad Gita. When it comes to psychological pain, Arjun is going through psychological pain. He's seeing, there are my own uncle and teachers in front of me, and I have to kill them. His heart is aching. That's emotional pain he's having. Krishna is teaching him how to come out of that. So if somebody can come out of that emotional pain, physical pain is much easier to come out of. Yeah. And Krishna is teaching about everything. It's a complete package. Okay.
Right. So I have a question. Like, I mean,
Yes.
pain is there, so we can try. I mean, you said that it's summer, it's hot, so we can find the solution, like get a fan or something. So, what is that? Or if there is a pain in the tooth, either we suffer or we, neglect it or whatever, or we can go to a doctor and get it fixed. So, what is that third part? I mean, you said there were two way. Either we can just, it's there, nothing can be done about it, or we
Yeah.
suffer like why it is happening, or we
So,
can try to find a solution.
so no, that's fine. You can try to find a solution. That's
Uh-huh.
okay. No problem in that. However, what Krishna is teaching have to have some amount of detachment also. I assure you, there's not like you can find a solution to every problem in your life.
Yeah,
That's
that is
not so,
true.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
when let's take that toothache analogy. When you have a toothache, yes, you can take a medicine, right? So you're treating the physical or the mental cause of pain. So it can remove that pain, yes, but it cannot remove the suffering associated with it. Right? It's the suffering, as I was saying, it comes from the mind's reaction to the pain. Right? So yeah, for some time, let's say you have toothache, you take a medicine, the toothache goes away for some time. But in your mind, you still will be thinking about it. Why is my tooth hurting? I brush my teeth twice a day. I showed it to the dentist and he said I have a cavity in my teeth and I have to get a filling and whatnot. So that kind of suffering will still continue. Suffering continues until the mind does not change. You can reduce the pain, fine, play around with that, but that's not the bigger deal. The bigger deal is the suffering, as I was saying.
Okay.
So, yeah, like for example, when devotees, when they go to a hospital, and actually I'll give you an example. It's a real life example. There was a devotee in ISKCON in London. In what's that name of that palace, Keshav?
Buckingham Palace?
No. ISKCON temple that we have, right?
Bhaktivedanta Manor.
Yeah, Bhaktivedanta Manor. Thank you, Keshav. In Bhaktivedanta Manor, there was this devotee. His name was Janaki Das. I think Janaki Das. 31-year-old brahmachari, amazing devotee. One day, he has stomach pain. He goes to the doctor. And the doctor tells him, you have level 4 cancer, whatever you call it, grade 4, level 4, I'm not sure what's the exact terminology. And you have GI tract cancer, and you only have 6 months to live. Right? Now imagine the amount of pain, the amount of suffering that brings. Unlimited suffering. Just imagine 31-year-old young person, a whole life in front of him, and he's a devotee, like he's practicing, he's in brahmachari, he's left everything, sitting in the temple, serving the temple 24/7, and he gets this news. Now, what does that devotee do is the more important part. And you can read about him. I'm sure they must be online. I heard from a devotee in Bhaktivedanta Manor, but you can also go ahead, and I can send you. I think one of the devotees wrote a book also about him in Bhaktivedanta Manor. The last 6 months that he has, what he does is, he said, I want the suffering that I'm going through, I want to help others alleviate that suffering. He started bringing cancer patients to the temple, helping them chant, helping them meditate, helping them enjoy despite all the suffering they were going through, right? And when he was, and he would say, you should take pictures of me when I go for my chemotherapy, or when I'm having some or treatment being done, take pictures of me. And when he was about to leave his body, he said, these last 6 months were the best months of my life, because here I was really able to see Krishna's hand in my life, that how he was just pushing me into becoming a better devotee. So that's what it means, that pain remains, suffering goes away. And that's what all we are aspiring for. Have that kind of mindset where whatever may come my way, I'm just going to be 24/7 being so grateful to Krishna for sending that pain to me, because it helps me connect with him. I gave the example of Kunti Maharani in the last class. She had to go through so much, but she's asking Krishna, Vipda santu yaha shashva tatra tatra jagat. Bhavato darshana yatsayat apunar bhava darshana. When I'm in suffering, I see you, Krishna. So please send me more suffering so that I continue to see you. So yeah, medicines, all that's minor things. The more important part is the pain and the suffering broadly that I was talking about. Suffering is treated by consciousness, by spiritual understanding. Medicine cannot fix that. I gave a long answer to a short question. Hope that was helpful.
Yes,
Jaya.
Prabhuji, thank you. Yes.
You're welcome. Okay, so we did this is 15. Okay, so let's move on to the next verse. 16. Those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent, the material body, there is no endurance, and of the eternal, the soul, there is no change. Let me make it slightly bigger. Let's see. This they have concluded by studying the nature of both. Right? So it's a very nice shloka. Now there are similar words. I highlighted them in the same colors. Nasato, which is satta word, and then satta in the next also. Bhavo na bhavo. So this is a very poetic way. Sanskrit is a very poetic language. Krishna is showing that to us. So, right, now if you look at the flow of the chapter, first to 10th verse, Arjun gives his 5th reason, right? And then he refuses to fight. 11 onwards, Krishna is teaching us the concept of the soul, 11th verse onwards, right? And so right here, what Krishna is doing in this verse, he's saying that the body has no endurance. Endurance means it's not going to last. Whereas your soul is never going to perish. So he's in one way, or Krishna is answering Arjun's doubt that, I had to kill my own relatives. Right? So Krishna is saying, don't live in an ignorant bodily concept, but live in an enlightened spiritual conception. So Krishna is now teaching about this knowledge he's giving to him. He's asking Arjun to tolerate based on the knowledge being provided, right, in this section. And then, so that's what Krishna is doing. So, and let's see if Prabhupada is highlighting something. Let's see. Okay, let's read that. Removal of ignorance involves the re-establishment of the eternal relationship between the worshipper and the worshipable, and the consequent understanding of the difference between the part and parcel living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, what it means is what Prabhupada is saying, when will our ignorance be removed? When we understand our relationship with Krishna. What is my relationship with Krishna? Right? Jivera Swarup Hoy, Nitya Krishna Das. We are eternally Krishna's servant. I know the servant word has a negative thought to it, but it's just like we voluntarily want to serve Krishna, because in this material world, we all are serving somebody or the other. So why not serve Krishna to get the maximum benefit? So, yeah, so, and then there's one more phrase that I liked in this verse. Is here. Yes, drishto antas. What it means is drishta means observed, anta means conclusion. So, drishti, when your vision comes to the conclusion, we understand that there are two natures, material and spiritual, right? One is temporary, one is permanent. So Krishna is specifically referring to body and the soul, right? So this material body is non-existent in one sense, right? So there's a non-existent and an eternal thing. So how is body non-existent? See, I can see my hand, etc. So Prabhupada sometimes uses the word non-existent for temporary also. Right? It's like an illusion. It's like a dream. But we are experiencing it as real for me. Right? So when we say that the world is an illusion, it means that Prabhupada uses that concept in the sense that it's temporary. It's there, but after some time it will not be there. Relationship, hobbies, they will not be there forever. I don't know if you have experienced this in your life, but I have clearly seen in my life that whenever I come too close to somebody, there's always something that happens that breaks that relationship. I've seen it so many times happening in my life. And I'm realizing that we all are of the same charge. We all are probably negative or positively charged. When two charges come close to each other, they start repelling each other. But if Krishna is in the center, then however close we may come, we don't repel each other. Right? So we have to bring the spiritual aspect. Right? So and that's the biggest illusion in this life, is that we can't connect everything to Krishna. There's a verse in the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, I think it's the 9th chapter. Rite artham yat pratiyeta, na pratiyeta chatmani, tad vidyad I forgot the last part. But what it's saying is that anything that's connected to me is spiritual. Anything that is not connected to me is illusion. So we can use everything for Krishna's service. That's basically to understand that part. Okay. 17. That which pervades the
Prabhuji, why would
Yes.
Krishna say use the word they in this shloka, like they, because it's ultimately Krishna who is like giving philosophy to everyone, right? So
he's talking about the seers of truth here. Those who are seers of truth have concluded that of the non-existent there is no endurance, and of eternal there is no. This they have concluded. So you'll notice that in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is not trying to push himself as Bhagavan and forcing himself on the devotees. He's using all the resources available. He's saying, because you're talking about 5,000 years ago, Brahmanas are very well respected, sages, they are respected, they have been respected for the knowledge they have. So he's saying it from them. Hey, you might not believe me. You think I'm saying I'm Bhagavan, but you might not believe me. There are these self-realized souls. Vyasadev, Narada. There's so many else. So they are saying this also. So he's stressing it more from a realistic perspective. That's what. Because right now, Arjun has not fully accepted that he's not a body, he's a soul. So he will have more faith on the so-called self-realized souls whom he respects, and might be less on Krishna as Bhagavan. So that's kind of a mindset that Krishna is speaking.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And you'll see this at many points. Krishna will bring in, he'll say that, oh, self-realized souls have said this, because he's constantly trying to say, it's not just me. Hey, don't have faith on me. Don't just have faith on me. But there are other people whom you respect who are saying these things. That's the way he's been pushing it. Okay. That which pervades the entire body, you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy that imperishable soul. So this is the 17th verse, yes. So I think this is a very interesting purport. This is a long one. Prabhupada talks about a couple of things. We'll go through it. The first concept that Prabhupada is talking about is the nature of the soul, which is spread all over the body. Anyone can understand what is spread all over the body. It is consciousness, right? So now, now Krishna is telling Arjun that you're not in this body, okay? You're not a Kshatriya or Kurunandana or whatever you may call him. Krishna is telling him you're a soul. Okay? Right? So you're that. So we all have various identities in this world: mother, father, professional, son, sister, daughter. These identities are not meant to be rejected, but they're functional identities based on the kind of function we are performing in this world. Underlying these functional identities that we all have, we have a fundamental identity. Right? So Krishna is telling that Arjun, that both being a Kshatriya and a Kuru Nandana, those are your functional identities. But your fundamental identity is that of a soul. Don't reject your functional identity, but it is meant to be subordinated. It should be lower than your fundamental identity. So so that's the way Krishna is speaking. And so when Arjun asks Krishna about what his activity should be, right? Then Krishna's sequence of answers indicate that the question of identity takes priority over the question of activity, right? So now Krishna is not asking him to fight as of yet. Krishna is giving him all this philosophy. Who are you actually, Arjun? Right? So he's not worried so much about what Arjun's activity should be at that moment. He's more explaining about what his identity should be, right? So only when we can understand correctly who we are, can we figure out properly what should we be doing. So that's the way to understand. And yeah, we see that in everyday scenarios also. For example, I read this somewhere about two people. They were three friends, and one of the friends was a smoker, and he offered a cigarette to one of the other friends. So the other guy said, oh, no thanks, I'm trying to quit. Okay, that sounds like a reasonable response, but this person still believes that he's a smoker who's trying to be something else. He's trying to give up that smoking. They're hoping that their behavior will change while carrying out the same beliefs. He's still saying that I'm a smoker, but I'm trying to quit. When the cigarette was offered to the other friend, the person said, no, thanks, I'm not a smoker. It's a small difference. But this statement signifies a shift in identity. Smoking was a part of his former life, not the current life. They no longer identify themselves as smokers. So Krishna begins to help us, explaining that we are not what we normally think we are, this material body. Right? And then that's why that's why Prabhupada is taking us through a simple thought experiment. Let's focus our consciousness. Right? And Krishna provides the answer by pointing to the eternal soul as I, the center point of consciousness that is radiating throughout the whole body. That is why the word pervading is being used here. Pervades. Pervades means it's spread all throughout. And that's what Prabhupada is explaining here. It's spread all over the body. Right? So this is a very good thought experiment that Krishna is putting us through. Prabhupada is explaining it further. Right? So Krishna is refuting the misplaced compassion that Arjun had. Right? So it was in one of the first chapters. Krishna said, "Nacha Shreyo anupashyami, nacha shreyo anupashyami, hatva swajanam ahave. I think that was the part. So that there's this compassion he was showing towards his friends, families, whatever. And that's what Krishna is refuting here. That uh, you are not this body, but you are what is pervading this whole body. And nobody can destroy that. So you are thinking you're destroying them. No, no, you're not doing that. Right? So Krishna is answering that. Right? So yeah. So that's something that Krishna is now highlighting here in a broader sense. So now there's two concepts. There is pervasion, it's all pervading, and that it cannot be destroyed. Okay, imperishable, it's imperishable. So uh, in this verse, how to say, I'm just trying to think of a right way to explain the difference between pervading and so the thought in this verse is that generally one object destroys another object by pervading into it. In this material world, that's what we see, right? When one thing enters into another, it destroys that other thing, right? When let's say a bullet hits somebody and somebody, then it destroys that physical structure. When we drown, the water enters into our body, right? So, but then Krishna is emphasizing that Atma cannot be pervaded by anyone. You cannot pervade the Atma. So it's become it the because it pervades everything, it's indestructible. Right? So probably Krishna is thinking that, or Arjun is thinking that, oh, what if I hit the soul with an arrow? Something of that sort might be going, right? Yes, Gandharvika.
Um, I'm just curious, when we are in this gross body, our ego is attached to the identification as I am this body. So when we have a spiritual body, we don't have a gross body, but we have a spiritual body. So how does the ego work as a spiritual being, like a spiritual body in spiritual world?
So you're saying how
does the liberated soul in the spiritual world, their ego is attached to I am this body as well? Because they also enjoy senses in the spiritual world too.
Okay. I get your point. Yes. So yes, to understand is that in the spiritual world, your ego is not destroyed. Your ego is still there. Therefore, Prabhupada uses the phrase false ego. If he's using the phrase false ego, there has to be a true ego also. So in the spiritual world, that false ego converts, it becomes purified. Material ego, false identification, right? Ahamkar, as I was saying. I'm this, I'm doing it. I'm this body, I'm beautiful, I'm an American, I'm a Gujarati, I'm a Marathi, English, Hindi, whatever it may be, Bengali, whatever it is. Right? I'm successful, I'm hurt. That's the false ego. It makes us think that I'm the doer, independent of Krishna. And what is the result of all that? There's attachment, there is fear, there is envy, competition. Spiritual world, spiritual ego, true identification. Right? What is the true identification? I am Krishna's eternal servant. I am his part and parcel. I belong to him. It's true and it's pure. Right? Prabhupada said, ego is there, always there. You cannot destroy ego, but you can purify it. So ego is not the problem. False ego is the problem. When purified, it becomes our spiritual identity. That the true ego becomes our spiritual identity, full of love and service. Sat Chit Anand. Right? Full of consciousness, full of eternality, and full of bliss. That's what we become. So, in the spiritual world, every living entity has a unique identity. But that all those identities are fully harmonized in serving Krishna. You can say, I'm Krishna's friend, I'm Krishna's servant, I'm Krishna's parent, I'm Krishna's lover. That ego gives joy, not bondage, because it's based on love, not ego, not selfishness. Was that what you were asking? Did that make sense?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah. You're welcome. Okay, yes. So as I was saying, so the concept of pervading is something that we have to understand. So it's the soul that's pervading. It's pervading, and nobody can destroy it. Right. So that's what Krishna is highlighting here. right? So, and now the soul, what is the soul's energy? It's consciousness. Yena sarvam idam tatam, that the consciousness is eternal. As long as we are thinking, feeling, willing. So the whole point is to tell Arjun, don't lament. So the soul is pervading throughout this body. So soul, and then further on, Prabhupada gives the dimensions of the soul. He says, when the upper point of a hair is divided into 100 parts, and again, each of such part is further divided into 100 parts, each such part is the measurement of the dimension of the soul. Balagra Shata Bhagasya. So there's this verse from Shvetashvatara Upanishad. So Prabhupada gives that, right? So he's giving giving the dimensions, right? And now sometimes you may see, oh, okay, there is an exact dimension giving. It can be symbolic, it can be literal as well as metaphorical. Try to understand it that way, right? Um, it is symbolic in the sense that it is indicative of how small the soul is. It is also literal because it means that soul has a definite form and has dimension to it. Point is that it is small. It is so small that we cannot see it. Somebody might say, can I see it through a high magnification microscope? They have fancier microscopes coming in. You can look at nanometer, Armstrong level things, right? So yes, you will not be able to see it. And the inability to see the soul through a microscope is not because it's too small in size, but because it's not matter. It's spiritual in nature. Spiritual cannot be seen by gross material nature. And Prabhupada says this somewhere, if I remember. I was looking for the specific word. I think Prabhupada uses the word chetna somewhere. I don't know if I can find it. Yeah, so Prabhupada, I think somewhere he says this, that you can, the soul is atomic in size and can be seen by your chetana, by your intelligence. Right? That's something. And then Prabhupada brings out another concept that the soul is floating in 5 kinds of air, right? So as you all know, there is this 5 kinds of air. There's, I think Prabhupada is prana, pan, vayan, saman, udan, right? And they all have their own functions. For example, the prana vayu is in the chest and the head. It governs things like inspiration, like breathing out, and then those kind of things. And then the apan is more in the pelvis area, like yeah. So it's like eliminating and all those kind of things. And then there is some amount. There is another where it is in the navel area, so that's related to absorption of food and so forth. So, but then the concept that Prabhupada is highlighting here is that uh, soul is floating in 5 airs. Each air has a specific function. Air is a mode of interaction between the gross body and the soul. Atma is sitting right in the heart. From there, the subtle body to the mind, everything like it radiates outwards. All that consciousness, right? So they're like these arrows pointing outwards, the 5 arrows, but the source is the soul, right? So, yeah. So what the concept to understand is that the soul, as a soul living entity, is pervading throughout this whole body, and that is why this whole body is moving and acting. My hands are moving, and, my feet are moving, the extreme of my body, they all are moving, because that soul is all pervasive in my body. And how is it doing it? Through those 5 airs, right? Hope I didn't confuse you any further, but that's something that Prabhupada is explaining here. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense to everybody. So and it's not something that you have to memorize or fully grasp, and you should be knowing it by heart and these verses. Just get this concept that the reason Prabhupada is bringing it out, it's very small, but it's not material, it's spiritual in nature. So it's a literal meaning and also metaphorical. Both those aspects you have to understand, right? Right. From a spiritual perspective, when we keep practicing bhakti, after many, I don't know, lifetimes, we get this sense that I cannot win in this material world. I'm a jiva, I'm a living entity. This world is not my place. But I have been trying to win here, right? What we all are doing here is developing a sense of purpose, right? What we're doing, when I say here, means in this discussion group that we're having. We want to develop a sense of purpose. We want to develop a clarity of our mind, and we want to develop a fixity, a fixation of our heart, so that we are not bewildered by the sukha dukkha, the ups and downs of this life. And also trying to understand what Krishna is explaining here, that we are not getting any more suffering or any less than we deserve. Right? So don't go crying and screaming. The moment we start retaliating, we start entangling ourselves more and more. Right? I'm surrounded by an energy that's very, very perplexing. So to be detached, you identify that you're not a body, you're a soul. Prabhupada is giving us more value, more details. What's your size of the soul, how you're spreading consciousness and everything. That will help us come out of this concept of perplexity, this perplexity that we all are in. Yes, Jhulan Yatra.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I wanted to ask that sometimes we are in a situation where we don't necessarily like overreact, but sometimes we do say that, okay, whatever, is supposed to happen. But how do you come to know that we are saying that because we are detached or just because we don't care of the situation?
So, how to know whether we are detached
Or I
or
just don't care about that situation?
uh, so one way to look at it is that detachment is more for after you have done an action. Okay, understand from that. Just try to understand that. You still care. Detachment means you still care, but your peace doesn't depend on the outcome. You will do the job in the best way possible. You will act with compassion, duty, whatever it may be, awareness of Krishna's control. So that's what detachment means, right? Indifference, what you're saying, not caring, it means that you close your heart to avoid pain. Or possibly I withdraw out of, it could be fear, it could be laziness, it could be self-protection. There is a coldness, but there's no peace in there. So lack of care or indifference is before you take the action. Okay. So yeah, that's one major difference you keep in mind. Detachment is more after, right? You do the job perfectly. And then, so that's the way to identify whether I'm detached or I'm just not caring about it. That at what point is that so-called detachment coming into picture? Is it before you do the action or after you do the action? That's one way to look at it.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's detachment means you still care. You'll put your heart in it. You'll do that job, but you'll not be worried about the results. Indifference means you just don't want to do that job. Indifference means you are just out of whatever it may be, fear, you are lazy. I'm just, my mind is trying to protect myself that, hey, don't go and ask this question in a meeting of 50 people because they're going to laugh on you. That's indifference. That's not detachment. My mind will tell me, oh, I don't worry whether I have asked this question or not. I don't need the answer. It might pretend as if it's detachment, but it's actually indifference. That's coming before the action. But if I ask this question and I don't worry what those 50 people are going to think about me, 10 of them might just stand up and say, what a stupid question that is. Or somebody might just stand up and say, hey, no, what a wonderful question. That changes the whole path of our discussion. But I don't worry about it. So that's detachment.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So this was this verse. Let's go on to the next one. Anything, anybody at this point? Anything on anybody's mind? Comments, questions, thoughts that were not clear? Anything?
Oh yes, one question, like you said, is after the fact. I mean, before the fact, right? Like you should not take detachment. But isn't, like, for example, like, somebody worries too much about job or whatever, right? They still keep doing their work, but don't care about the outcome, right? So that is in a way like being detached even before the outcome, right? Not like post outcome.
No,
So
what I meant was saying in detachment is that you're detached from the outcome. That's what I meant. So if you want to find out whether you're detached or not, look how attached you are to the outcome. That will tell you whether you're detached or not. However, when you are thinking that I don't care, you would be in a mindset of not caring even while you're doing the action. But a detached person is no, he's doing the action perfectly at the best to his capacity. But a person who is lazy, who is in fear, will not even do the activity in the right way. That's the difference I was highlighting.
okay.
Okay. 18. The material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and the eternal living entity is sure to come to an end. Therefore, fight, O descendant of Bharata. Right. So this body is bound to end, antavanta, but that what is inside the body is indestructible and immeasurable. Right. So now what Krishna was saying, now how did he come to the conclusion to fight? Right? Soul is indestructible, and you will not be able to save the body. And you'll not be able to even harm the soul. So don't get into this frenzy thinking that you will be able to save the body. That's what Krishna is explaining to Arjuna. It's just a matter of time. Might be not now, might be 5 years from now, might be 10 years from now. We all are born with the death sentence. Right? Somebody asked Prabhupada that, hey, in India, the death rate is so high. In America, it's not that high. Prabhupada laughed and said, he says death rate is the same everywhere, 100%. Okay. So we all have been sentenced to that. But we don't know when the death sentence will be executed. Right? And it cannot be measured. We cannot measure it by our perception. Right? So Krishna is giving a call for action in this verse. It's not just an educational verse, it's also a directional verse. So Krishna is telling to all of us, Prem Dham, you are not a body, you're a soul. Be detached from the dualities of this life and go and fight. For us, fighting means to do our duties, whatever we have been assigned by Krishna. Doing our duty with Krishna in our mind. Right? So this is a very direct instruction. And it's more important for all the practicing devotees like us. This one is the best. Right? Like a doctor might tell you a lot about the disease. When you go to the doctor and he can tell you, oh yeah, you have this, you have that, this and that. But the most important part is when he tells you what you should do. Right? So because this now, so yeah, so that's it. So because of soul being immortal and body being destructible, we don't invest too much time in the body. We don't give it up either. Right? But you keep doing your duties. And again, so we'll see this again and again. Krishna will ask Arjuna to fight. Bhagavad Gita's setting, it demonstrates many things, first of all. Why was Bhagavad Gita spoken in the middle of a battlefield? One thing it indicates is the urgency of spirituality. Right? That's one thing. The second thing it gives us is the social responsibility of people like us who are practicing. And then third is the necessity for an assertive action in order to correct social wrongs when everything else fails. Right? So Mahatma Gandhi said Bhagavad Gita is promoting non-violence. But that's not right. Bhagavad Gita does not promote non-violence. Arjuna Krishna himself, was in the middle of the battlefield, standing right there. So one way you have to understand that what Gita is demonstrating that when everything else fails, sometimes there have to be violence also to resolve. Pandavas did everything possible to avoid the war, but Kauravas were very stubborn. They rejected every peace proposal. So Bhagavad Gita, with its background, demonstrate that war should not be anything but the last alternative. But it is still an alternative. And spirituality is very urgent. In the middle of a battlefield, there are millions of people ready to fight, and Krishna is speaking about this. There is an urgency for spirituality. And it's also it teaches us social responsibility of people who are practicing bhakti. That is why we all go out and preach. That is why we all go out and distribute books. It's a social responsibility on us. If I got something and I keep it to myself, it will rot in my heart. I might have given this example earlier. There are two lakes in Jordan. One is the lake. One is, I think, it's the Lake of Jordan, and the other is the Dead Sea. They both are not very far off from each other. The Lake of Jordan, I think that's what it's called. Please forgive me if it's wrong, but that's one. So it gets I think it gets the water from the ocean, from the seas, and it comes to it and it passes through. The land around that Lake of Jordan is very fertile. But when that same water reaches the Dead Sea, there's no outlet to it. Everything just stays in there. That is why there is nothing growing around that Dead Sea. It's full salt. Any animal who goes in there is sure to die. So when we give it out as seeing it as a social responsibility, that is one of the messages of Bhagavad Gita. It demonstrates that also to us. So just, sorry, I took a tangent, but that's something that is being told to us. Yes, Gandharvika.
So all those honor that was given to soldiers in our society, that's honoring the effort that they killed enemies, thinking they are their enemies based on the bodily concept, right? Everyone in this world at the moment, they're fighting based on the bodily concept. So no one is understanding this, that nobody is operating in this philosophy. Everyone is about this country, my community, my family. But in the meantime, we are giving so much of honor for their effort.
Yeah. Ordinary honor is based on the bodily concept. Yes, but your body, your role, or my national identity. Yeah, I'm from India. I fight a war against some other country, and I get honored because of that, right? So yes, it's the ordinary honor is based on the bodily concept, right? However, so Krishna is not condemning the duty itself, but he wants us to transform the consciousness behind it, right? When Arjun was about to fight, he's thinking, how can I kill my relatives? It's better for me to renounce the fight. But Krishna told him, no, Nimitta Matra Bhava Sava Sachin, do it as my instrument, Arjun. Right? And then he also says, do your work without any false ego. Right? So the soldier's fighting itself is not condemned. It's the motivation that makes it material or spiritual. If one thinks I am this body, I protect my nation, bodily concept, which is honored in this world nowadays. If one fights thinking I'm Krishna's instrument, I'm doing my dharma as a service, that's the spiritual consciousness. And we can do everything we do as in that mindset, that I'm doing this as a service to Krishna. Whatever work you may do, not just a soldier. Okay, there are two participants who have raised their hand. Did that make sense, Gandharvika, Mataji? I can't hear you if you're on mute. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. 19th. Neither he who thinks the living entity the slayer, nor he who thinks it slain is in knowledge. For the slays not, nor is slain. Nayam hanti na hanyate. Right. Yes. So Arjun is thinking, what will people think of me? I'm the killer of my grandfather and my guru. Krishna is saying soul is neither a cause of killing, neither an object of killing. So soul is not the killer also. Right. So Krishna is explaining how it's ignorance to lament for this body. So soul neither kills nor is it killed. What does it mean? What does it mean that the soul is not the killer also? Arjun shoots arrow. Isn't he the killer? Right? So, but the earlier verse said the body is perishable. Therefore, the body's destruction cannot be avoided. Right? In that sense, when soul gets separated from body, it is unavoidable. If someone thinks that he's the killer, then he's thinking himself as the doer. Right? So here Krishna is talking about the overall pattern of nature. But then this is not a license to kill anybody. If we kill somebody, it means that we have certainly stopped the progressive march of the soul in a body, right? And we have abruptly terminated the life of another living entity. But when we do it under a proper authority, then it's the right thing. That is why Krishna is asking Arjun to fight under his authority. Then there is no problem. So that's something to keep in mind. That is why all the slaughterhouses that are out there, whenever somebody kills an animal, we have stopped the progressive march of that soul in that particular body. Right? So we have terminated the life of somebody, and we are going to get karma because of that. That is why we have capital punishment. Why a person is hanged to death when he murders somebody? Because the amount of karma that person has accumulated is so much that his suffering is going to increase in this life. So better we just condense that suffering and give it in one way and hang him, so that next life at least he can start from a better place. That was a concept behind capital punishment. Yes, Julian. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a question about that. So when he starts a fresh next life, meaning what? Like he doesn't have any karma, or like just whatever he has accumulated till that death sentence, he will just get reaction for that.
So you're saying what happens to somebody when he's given a death sentence? What happens to them in the next life?
Yeah, so like yes. So you said he'll start afresh. So he doesn't get anything for killing someone?
His soul is going to continue, right? So yes, for example, yes, he's going to take another body to kill another being, especially a human being, that creates heavy karmic reactions, right? As I was saying, because you have forcibly ended another soul's bodily experience before the destined time. But the death sentence itself is also a karmic balancing act. So you can look at it as a partial payment of the karmic debt. I gained a lot of karmic debt because of killing somebody. I was hung. I was given a capital punishment. So my partial payment was done because I paid back from my own body. When I took somebody's body, I paid back from my own body, right? So that punishment is seen as a mercy, right? So next life, then what happens? After death, as we know, the subtle body takes the soul to another body, according to the whatever karma and consciousness we have. So let's say if the killer, when he dies, if he's repentant, he's praying, he's remembering God, he might get a higher birth. He might get a birth as a human being. Because he's repenting, sincerely repenting that he's done something wrong, and he's also paying his karmic debt by being killed. But that if that person doesn't realize it, if he still has violence in his mind, the birth might be a lower one. He might become an animal. He might become a low animal, and he might be killed or hunted, something like that. So it's hard to say what that person is going to get, but for sure, by going through that capital punishment, a major chunk of his karmic debt was cleared out. That's what I was highlighting.
Okay, so even though if you're like a serial killer and you've killed a lot of people, even though he's like giving his life, is just one life that he's giving.
Well, so as I said, a part of his karmic debt. I'm not saying whole
Okay,
is
yeah,
of
yeah,
all the karmic debt will be gone.
yeah.
Let's say if he's a serial killer, and when he's leaving his body, yeah, you can say, okay, Krishna might balance, and I'm just giving it randomly. I don't know what the way
Yeah,
Krishna
yeah.
planned. One murder might be taken into account, two might be, but then he still has to pay for the others in his next life. So what he gets in the next life will be dependent on the amount of karma he has accumulated. So just that one capital punishment is not going to nullify all that karma. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, Sandeep.
Roji, so it kind of made from this shlok, the Atma doesn't get killed, right? That's because it's eternal. That's kind of understandable. But Atma is also not the killer. Isn't like Atma the doing, directing the body to do things here? So a little
So
bit
what
confused.
Krishna is saying that when you think that I'm the killer, then you come into that mentality that I am the doer. Once again, it becomes that ahankar, that false ego that kicks in. Right? What Krishna is asking, that Arjun, yes, you have to kill these people, but you kill them as my as a duty that I have given you. Then you don't fall trapped with the false ego that I am the doer, that you are the doer. So
Okay.
then in that way, then Arjun as a soul is not the killer also. If he's doing it under Krishna's directive. That's the way to understand.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay. 20. For the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. Okay. So this is a very important verse. This is the 20th. Ajayate mriyate va kadachin. Right? Okay. So we never come into being and go out of being. So somebody can ask this question that, hey, if we are indestructible and we're not coming into being or going out of being, why is there an increase in population? Somebody asked me this many years ago. Right? First of all, we don't know how many species are there in the world. How many grass is there? How many microbes are there? How many mosquitoes are there? Right? If let's assume that an alien comes to a classroom and there are only all 10-year-olds kids in that room, that alien might think that the whole world is full of 10-year-olds. It's a very relative subject. So yeah, so it's not just that just because we are seeing an increase in human population, we can make oh no, there are new souls that have been created. No, there's never that happens. That's what Krishna is explaining. Right? So yeah, so yes, just wanted to highlight that. Yeah, so it's not being born or not being dead. It might change forms. More human beings, they're coming into this life. But then there are also other microorganisms that are disappearing. So yes, it just balances out. Right? I think there was one thing.
Prabhu, is there a part of literature that explains the like categories of 8.4 million species? Is this species in the entire this universe or just the Earth? I'm always confused. If it's in the universe, it doesn't feel it's enough species because 100,000 species for just the human. And then if you look at dog, they have so many species. So when you count them up, it quickly becomes 8.4 in just this Earth already. So how do you justify that's covering the entire universe when there are so many planets in this universe?
So yes, so there are 8.4 million species, right? So it's specified that it's in this creation, so not just this universe, everywhere, right? And to give you were asking me where, in Padma Puran, there is a verse that tells us the exact distribution of all the different species. That says Jalaja Nava Lakshani. That says in aquatics, there are 900,000 species, right? And then there's a Sthavara Laksha, I forgot what's that. So there's a verse, I can share that verse with you, which gives exact distribution of species. How many species in water, how many species of trees and plants, how many species of insects and reptiles, and birds and beasts and human beings. It gives that division. And it's all over the creation. So it's not just that all 8.4 million have to be in this world itself. Was that what you were asking?
It is because every planet is inhabited, right?
Yeah.
It's not just human, but there are so many different planets, and it cannot be just one or two. Even if it's one or two, there's just so many planets. I don't know how 8.4 can be enough to cover the whole universe.
Yeah, well, that's what the Shastras say. They cover everything. And it's not a small number. You're talking about, like 2 million species of trees and plants. I don't know how many we have identified in this world. Probably 5,000, 10,000. I don't know.
3 million. All scientists already starting to identify so many millions of species. So if that is identified only in this Earth planet, it could be a lot more in other planets.
And then you also have to understand is that species doesn't mean that there is a different type of tree. Like for example, if you say that a black rose is a different species and a red rose is a different species and a white rose, that's not that. Roses are one species. That's the way. So the way we are categorizing species might also be different. That's what also to keep in mind.
Yeah, that makes sense. So dog is one species.
Yeah, you can say that. And not just dog. Like, for example, a lion is also a cat, like a cat species. A tiger is also a cat species. And I think a fox also falls under that same species. Even hyenas, I think, fall into the same species. So yeah, we're seeing different animals, but the species is the same. Whatever we call it, feline, cat, whatever species that is. And that's based on some of the very specific traits of that species. So yeah, so that's a slightly different way of what species mean. You have to look at it also.
Yeah, Prabhuji, and that's what I thought. Like even scientific definition wise, species is like one. Like it's not like different kind of breeds of dogs are like different species. That's what I heard somewhere.
Yeah, so yeah, so species doesn't mean the number of trees they are seeing, or even if they're slightly different. No, the species is a much broader way of categorizing trees or birds or beasts. Yeah. And I'll send you the link to the verse that Prabhupada quotes from Padma Puran, which gives the exact distribution of these species.
Thank you.
I have read, when I read this Bhagavad Gita like many years ago, that time I Googled it like species, and it was what our scripture says is correct, because the scientists also say around, 8 point something million species, and only 2 million species has been identified. They do not know about. They presume there are 8 point this million species, but they identified only one something 1.5 million species only. So yeah, so I think what our scripture says is correct. I mean, it is always correct, but it also correlates with what our scientists say.
Thank you. Okay, so we are at which verse will we be at? This is 20th verse. Right, so the soul can neither be born nor die. Yeah, so this is something that we never come into being, we never go out of being. Right. So yeah, and then it's not that the soul ever comes into existence. Birth means that coming into existence at any given time. The body can come into existence at a time, but the soul never does. So Krishna is clarifying the difference between the soul and the body. So soul is the root of the consciousness, and body is by which way the consciousness expresses itself. But then we become helpless when we don't believe in the soul. Yeah. Or if we start thinking that everything is happening by chance and there's no God in control, that brings fear into our heart. And we as a consciousness have those three qualities which I refer: thinking, feeling, and willing. We can't see the soul, but we can still understand by the consciousness. If you remove the living aspect, living beings, if you remove the consciousness, then we are dead. So the spark never changes, it just never dies, it just changes bodies. And I think in this verse, Prabhupada is talking about 6 different things that we go through. We're born, we remain for some time, we grow, we produce some effects, we dwindle, and last we die. So that's the way the body changes, but the soul does not change that. So Prabhupada is giving this steps to change that's happening to all of us. Awareness is the first step to change. So Many principles Prabhupada keeps repeating across all his books, that you're not a soul, you're not a body, you're a soul. So when you keep reading them, then you become more and more aware of them. And when you become more and more aware of them, you start changing. If I keep telling you that, if you keep telling yourself that I'm not this body, I'm a soul, at every point, then you'll try your best to distinguish between the body and the soul. And then you become aware of it. That's the progression of bhakti. That's the progression of understanding your spiritual knowledge. Okay, I'll just take a pause here. I don't want to start the next thing. It might be too much of philosophy in one go. I want to give a chance to others who have not spoken. If there's anything on your mind, it's a good time you want to bring it up.
Prabhuji, I just have a question.
Mhm.
So it's about karma, Prabhu. So if when we say it's like it comes around, goes around. So Prabhu, because of our soul only, our body, whatever we are accumulating from Prabhu from previous birth. So this is because of our soul, we are our body is suffering. Is that a mean, Prabhu?
So you're saying that is the soul the source of suffering?
Y- Yes, Prabhu. Is yeah, just wanted to clear my understanding, Prabhu.
Well, the soul itself never suffers. That's one thing you have to understand.
Okay, Prabhu.
The soul is, as I was saying, it was Satchidanand.
Mm-hmm.
Just one second. I think I'm just somewhere. Yeah, Satchidanand. So it's eternal, it's full of knowledge, it's full of bliss. Right? And Krishna has told that to us. It cannot be cut by weapon, cannot be burned by fire. So suffering happens, or the karma that happens, it happens when the soul identifies with the body and the mind. This is where the ahankar, the false ego, comes in. It's a misidentification. Right? I am this man, I am this woman, I'm an Indian, I'm an American. Right? That's the false identification. That's the source of suffering. So when my body hurts, I think I am hurt. I am not hurt. As a soul, I'll never get hurt. Krishna is clearly telling that to me. When the mind is sad, I say I am depressed. But actually,
Right.
this is just an experience of the material nature, not of this soul.
Right. Okay, Prabhu. Mm-hmm.
So it's that the association that's causing the suffering. Right? But the soul by itself, just like Prabhupada gives the example, if you have seen a crystal, if you put crystal near a light, then let's say if you put it near a rose, for example, not a light, but Prabhupada gives the example that if I take a crystal, I put it near a rose, then the crystal will appear red to me.
Mm-hmm.
But the crystal by itself is not a red in color, but it's identifying with that color red and it's presenting itself as red. So similarly, the soul is by itself not suffering, but just because it's been entangled in this body, and it's identifying itself with this body, is why the soul thinks that it's suffering. So it's the soul's forgetfulness of its true self that makes it feel that it's suffering.
Got it, Prabhu. Yes. Actually, we actually forget our relationship, right? That's why we are identify with this body and then we are suffering, right? Not because of our soul.
Yes, no, not because of our soul at all. We don't suffer because of the soul.
Right.
The job of soul is it never suffers.
Yeah.
But then it identifies with this body and thinks that,
Hmm.
oh, this body is me, and because this body is suffering, I am also I'm the one who's suffering. But no, I'm never suffering, right?
Right,
And
Prabhu.
and
Yeah.
and there's this verse in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita where Krishna is clearly telling that let me show that verse to you quickly. It's a very good verse, and we can look at that. It's 13th chapter, 22nd verse. Let me just pull it up. Karanam guna samgasya sadasya joni yamashu. Here it is. Let me see. So Krishna is saying, this is 13th chapter, 22nd verse. The living entity in material nature thus follows that ways of life enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus, he meets with good or evil among various species. The living entity is the soul. When it follows the ways of life, it means Krishna is saying that when you start identifying with this life, with this body, then you become entangled in the modes of nature, and then with that association, good or evil comes accordingly. And I start thinking that, oh, it's me who's suffering. That's
Right,
what.
Prabhu.
It's a
Yeah.
philosophical concept. I think it's not easy for us to understand that, but it's good if we keep repeating that, keep it on top of our mind. That helps us purify our consciousness.
Right, Prabhu. Yeah. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
You're welcome.
Prabhu,
Okay.
I had a question also related to the soul. You kind of went into in verse 17 that it primarily plays a part in the consciousness. But how does does it? Is it stipulated anywhere by Prabhupada that it plays any part in the subconscious?
What plays a part in subconscious? What do you mean?
Well, the awareness, like in verse 17, you stated that the soul plays a part with the body, where there's awareness right within the body, and the different parts of the body that are that you kind of live right, and you do things, and the soul plays a part in that. But what about the subconscious? Does the soul play any part in that?
What do you mean by subconscious? I'm not sure. What is your
Well,
understanding?
Well,
Subconscious.
subconscious is like when you're awake, you're conscious of your surroundings, of everything that happens. But subconscious is when you're not awake, but your body's still functioning, correct? And your soul is still present. So what part does it play when you're, let's say, as per like you're sleeping and you're in a state of subconsciousness? So does the soul play any part in that, or it does not?
Oh, okay. Okay, I get your question. So yes, so see the subconscious mind in the modern understanding, subconscious mind is just it refers to that part of the mind that stores memories, habits, impressions, fears, your desires, right? It operates below your consciousness level, it below your conscious awareness, right? So um, so the mind has three layers according to Shastras, I'm telling you. Okay. One is your conscious mind, the other is your subconscious mind, which is the memory part, or not even mind, I would say. It's a chitta, your consciousness. When I use the word consciousness, and Prabhupada uses the consciousness, he talks of these layers: mind, intelligence, and ego. And the mind is divided into two parts: the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. The conscious mind is what thinks, feels, desires, and the subconscious mind is what stores past impressions. And then your intelligence is your buddhi, your discriminating capacity. And your false ego is your ahankar, the sense of I and mine that identifies with the body. So all the consciousness is a cumulative of all these three things. So subconscious is a part of that. It's not separate from your, it's not taken as a separate entity. So even whatever you're doing subconsciously, it's still the mind. It's still the mind. It's not anything else.
Okay, I understand. All
Yeah.
right, thank you. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Okay, we are at 8:33. We'll finish now. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.